Hey, GameLeapers, what's going on? This is Eggs. In today's video, we're putting those changes into tier lists. So we're going to be talking about the most broken champions, the worst champions, champions that are going to go up and down in terms of the tiers they're in. So make sure you stick around for the whole video, of course. And by the way, this is Eggs, what's going on?
But just before we do get into the video, one thing you guys have to do before you get into your next game is to download the POROFESSOR app linked in the description, because it allows you to quickly import the best room page used from the best players in the world on the champion you're picking. You don't have to make the room page, just one click of a button and bang, you're ready to go. But that's not all, because the app also allows you to scout your opponents, and the app will give you their stats, how well they play their champion, so you can know more about your opponent than they know about themselves. And the app also gives you an in-game overlay, so you can compare your CS and your kill participation to your rank or even challenger players like Faker. And there's a reason why 3 million people have downloaded this free application, guys. It's because it works. So get around it in Season 12. Those links are in the description.
So we'll start in the top lane, and one of those champions I just mentioned, Darius in Broken Tier, and alongside him we have Fiora, Jax, and Jace. This is exactly the same as last patch. The top lane, not too many champions are getting hit, and the most OP champions, well, they're going to largely stay the same. The only champion that's getting nerfed from the Broken Tier is Jax. So pretty much Ryder making your early game weaker. That's really all you have to know. But your scaling is still going to be there, and it's not like they're completely gutting his early game. You'll still be able to play this champion whether you're taking lethal tempo or grass down dying. It shouldn't have too much of an impact. His win rate might drop a little bit, but he will still be a very strong champion. Now, other champions getting hit at 13.4 in the top lane. Well, one of the most popular champions in the top lane is Riven. And for Riven, your passive damage is now scaling linearly, which means you'll be getting actual more passive damage at each level, which is really nice, and that's why she's moving up to S tier. And we should also mention that your passive is now going to deal damage to towers, but at 50% effectiveness. But even though it's 50% effective, it still means you're going to get tower plates quicker and towers quicker. So Riven will be strong in 13.4 because of these changes. Now, a couple of other top laners who are getting buffed. One of them is Cho'Gath. So your Q's mana cost going down to just 50, and the damage going up from rank 2 onwards is really nice. The armor growth increasing, and also your W's mana cost going down. This is actually going to make him stronger, and this is why he's moved up from B tier to A tier. Then we have Malphite, who's getting buffed. Your W's cooldown is going down 2 seconds, and both armor ratios in your W, these are getting buffed, which is why Malphite is moving all the way up into S tier. I think he'll be a great champion, particularly against those attack damage champions. And that's really about it for the top lane champions, guys. Maybe I should also mention here that Kennen, well, Lil Kenny, he's got his own tier list, because I kind of feel sorry for Kennen mains. You were listed on the champion buff list, but you're not actually getting any. You have been moved for further investigation. So yeah, that's why Lil Kenny is representing the worst tier for these lists. And alongside Kennen, we have Aurelion Sol. Because of the hotfix nerfs, they've actually made Aurelion Sol top lane, which was actually doing pretty well, into pretty much just a piece of trash. It's much better to play him in the mid lane. Way too risky now playing him in the top lane, so be careful of doing that. And the last kind of thing I just want to talk about here, guys, is the D shield nerf, right? So you're actually getting less regen now. So if you're against pokey champions like Jace, like GP, this might even be like an indirect buff to these champions, right? Because you're not going to sustain as much HP when you play against them. Even if you run something like D shield or second wind, it's just worse off now. So these champions kind of indirectly move up in power. So that's the top lane tier list. What about the jungle tier list for 13.4? Well, jungle is going to change a lot. Reason being is because, well, all those AP champions that were OP in 13.3 are getting nerfed. So if we talk about Amumu, Elise, Udyr, Maokai, all of these are getting nerfed. And that's why they've gone down all the way from Broken Tier to A tier, and even Udyr has gone down to B tier because he's getting directly nerfed. So for the D, your HP growth is going down, your base armor is getting nerfed, important for the early game. Your Q's on hit ratio is scaling off less of your bonus attack damage, and your ultimate slow is also decreasing at each rank by 5%. This is really important for Udyr because Demonic Embrace is also getting nerfed, affecting every single one of these champions. So it now has a damage cap of 40 damage per tick against monsters. It means your clear speed, once you actually do hit your demonic spike, is going to be worse off. So yeah, that's why all these champions have gone down. But let's just be a little more specific here. So for Maokai, you're getting so many nerfs, whether it's to your Q's damage, your E's cooldown is going up by 4 seconds, your E's damage is going down, the AP ratio in this is also going down. So Maokai jungle is going to be hit big time, but I still think because you should be able to clear camps with your Q, it will still deal decent damage to jungle monsters. And Maokai, I still think with his ultimate being so busted, like he's probably the biggest like spiky level 6 in the game, right? Like his ultimate is so powerful. So I still think he'll be good. That's why he's an A tier. Then we have Elise, your spider form base damage, and your Q going down is huge because you're probably going to max this first. And then also your spiderling base damage. This is going to affect your clear as well, especially in the early game, because you need your spiderlings to, actually help you clear camps. So Elise is dropping dropped all the way down to B tier. And then finally we have a Moo, so your health growth going down, your armor growth is going down, and your W's damage is also scaling less off max HP. So I don't think a Moo is getting hit as hard as like Elise and Udyr, that's why he's still in A tier, but these are certainly nerfs. Now what about other champions in the jungle? Well, the only other champion who really got touched in 13.4 or who will get touched is Viego. So now your Q, you know when you can auto attack someone twice, that passive can actually now crit. This means if you're going something like Kraken Slayer into Infinity Edge or Shield Bow, something like this, right, one of the crit mythics, it's going to make Viego even stronger, right? And because this is your highest DPS build, getting into your passive, so transforming into those enemy champions, should be more doable, especially because engaged supports are now coming back into the meta. Really good for Viego to get those resets off, and also your ultimate is going to be dealing more damage as well, so look out for Viego in 13.4. I'm sure there'll be some interesting builds hitting the Rift. Now moving to the mid lane. And in the mid lane, guys, as far as broken champions go, well, not much is really changing apart from the fact that Aurelion Sol has just moved down from broken all the way to A tier because of those hotfix nerfs. Now, another champion who got hotfix nerfed is Annie, right? But she's still killing it. That's why she's in broken alongside Aurelia, Jace, and then we have Ryze. All of these should be self-explanatory. Now, in S tier, we have one new addition here, this being Ahri. So the fact that Ahri is getting buffed in 13.4, your base HP is going up, helps your early game, your base armor is going up, helps your early game. And it's not just against attack damage champions, against range mages who are going to auto attack you, this actually helps you out a lot in those matchups as well. Then your ultimate's cooldown is decreasing by 10 seconds at each rank. This is also good. It gives you more playmaking potential, it gives you more survivability, of course, so that's why Ahri is in S tier. Now, other champions in the mid lane getting buffed. First of all, we have Orianna and Veigar. Both of these are residing in low-key broken, in other words, underrated. Orianna is here because I think these buffs are actually big. Your base armor is going up by 3, exactly like Ahri, so it's now going to be at 20. And like I said for Ahri, right, this matters against every champion in the mid lane. It doesn't matter if they're attack damage or AP, this should be really good. And also your W's mana cost is going down by 10 because it kind of feels like if you use maybe your W twice in the early game, you're just So these are really nice buffs to Orianna and definitely make her laning phase better. And because you can go something like Ludens into Seras, I actually think the build is strong, and with Orianna becoming stronger, this is why she's low-key broken. Then we have Veigar here because your Q's range is increasing and your W's range is increasing as well. Now I don't actually think Veigar will be incredibly broken, but this will allow him to scale into a game, right, and just play safer in the early game. Just be careful, guys, if you're playing Veigar getting baited by your jungler. Like, you don't want to use mana on pointless ganks. Save that mana for the CS, scale into a game, and you should be able to actually play and maybe even dominate once the game goes past like 20-25 minutes. Now, we've got a couple of champions in the mid lane in 13.4, guys, getting nerfed. One of these is Anivia, but she will still be really good. That's why she's in S tier still. So even though the health growth is going down and the armor growth is going down, right, it shouldn't change too much because even with Roa, right, you're going to be stacking that HP, and even though the armor growth is going down, you're still going to be relatively tanky come the mid to late game, right, which is when these nerfs will really hit you. So I don't think it will matter too much. Also, by going something like Roa into Seras, right, the build is very good for Anivia, and the champion will still be innately strong, so that's why she is unmoved in S tier. And the final champion in the mid lane, guys, getting hit, this is Azir. And unfortunately, Azir, well, I've put him in Lil Kenny tier simply to, like, kind of prove a point, I guess. That your mana pool going down in the early game, even if it is like 150 points higher in the late game, your laning phase is going to be super difficult to actually just play early on. And your W's recharge is also going to be a second longer at early ranks. Even if your E's damage increases, like, it is increasing by a decent amount, don't get me wrong, as is the ratio. But are you really going to be using this to, like, engage into the enemy champions? Probably not, right? Like, I don't think this is going to be that important. And your ultimate getting a buff, yes, it's scaling off more AP, and yes, the base damage is going up, especially at later ranks, so at 11 and 16. But really, like, your damage output in the late game is with your soldiers, right? Like, your ultimate, yes, for sure, these are actual buffs, but like I said, your damage output, a large percentage of it is going to be from your sand soldiers and you queuing. So that's why I've just put Azir and Lil Kenny alongside Cannon, and also Kayle. Guys, if you're going to play Kayle, play her in the top lane. She's actually in the low-key broken list for top lane. I think she's in a good spot, especially if you use her as a counter pick into free lanes like tanky champions, like, you know, Cho'Gath, Ornn, these type of champs. But yeah, just don't play her in the mid lane because you will get shredded by anything that has magic damage. Now, moving down to the bot lane, guys, and if you are enjoying our tier list, let us know by leaving a like down below. And for our bot lane, the top broken champions, well, 3 of these are staying the same from last patch: Caitlyn, Jhin, and Xayah. But the new addition here is Twitch. Reason being is because Twitch is really making use of the new Blade of the Ruined King that got buff right for ranged users, so you're getting an extra % of damage. If you rush this as Twitch, you will be one-shotting everyone, especially when you get your ultimate right. I mean, you will have your ultimate by the time you get Blade of the Rune King, around level 8, 9, let's say, and the stats back this up as well. So Twitch is in broken. And the champion that's actually kind of been like substituted for Twitch in broken tier is Samira, who's gone down to S tier, and Samira is getting nerfed in 13.4. So the actual movement speed from your passive, this is going down until the late game, and your lifesteal you're getting from your ultimate, this is going to be less effective now. So these aren't the biggest nerfs in the world, and she will still be very good. That's why she's S tier. Now the only low-key broken AD carry, guys, and I will detail all of these kind of like low-key broken picks, I guess, underrated picks in a future video, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. This is Misfortune, and like I said, we will go through this in a future video. Now what about other AD carries who got buffed or nerfed? Well, there is Senna, and that's why Senna, guys, has actually now been included in this tier list in B tier. So what's happening for Senna, your attack speed ratio is going up by a whopping 33% to 0.4. This is really big for any like kind of attack speed Senna build. So if you're going like Kraken Slayer maybe, and because crit now is better, remember, so if you're going something like crit into Infinity Edge maybe, that could be really fun and actually good in 13.4. Probably wouldn't play it at the moment, but this actually looks pretty juicy. Then we also have your ultimate, the base damage getting buffed to later ranks, and also scaling more of your bonus attack damage. The cooldown as well as going down by 20 seconds at each rank. So these are big buffs to Senna. I don't think she'll be like super OP, but they definitely bring her back into the AD carry picture. And you guys can also see that I've included Veigar in this list in C tier, but I'd only pick him, guys, if you are against a very close range bot lane. So something like Samira, Nautilus, Samira, Alistair, something like this, right? You put one cage down, they're both entrapped, they're gonna die. Especially in the mid to late game, Veigar can be such a powerful champion against those close range compositions. And the last AD carry we have to talk about alongside Veigar in C tier is Aphelios, and I know you're gonna get more attack speed right from your passive, but does this really matter? Like, are you gonna run like something, what, like 2 adaptive force and then you're gonna mash your attack speed first? I don't know if this is actually really gonna mean that much. It's probably what, like not even a dagger's worth of extra attack speed at level 18, but still, these are buffs on paper. It might feel a little bit better to play Aphelios and engage supports being back in the meta. Yes, this actually helps him out as well because you can land your abilities, especially with your Graviton route, but I still think in a solo queue environment, he's not going to be that good, so that's why he's in C tier. Now the last role to discuss, guys, of course, are the supports for 13.4, and kind of like the top lane, nothing is going to change, okay, from 13.3. Annie, Blitzcrank, Nautilus, Rakan. These 4 champions are still going to be the cream of the crop, so if you guys are playing them at the moment, keep playing them. Then we have Amumu. Even though he's getting nerfed, he will still be very good as a support. And alongside him, we have Ashe, we have Pyke, 2 Umbral Glaive abusers. Don't worry, they are still doing very well. We have Morgana, because she counters so many engaged supports that are becoming really good. Nami, because, well, the stats don't lie there. She is still a very good champion. And then we have Thresh, who's actually getting some buffs in 13.4. Well, I mean, really, they're just adjustments. But what Riot are trying to do is encourage you to max your Q, then your Flay, and then your W. And the cooldown for your Q is going down to 9 seconds at rank 5. So by level 9, if you're maxing your death sentence, 9 seconds is a super low cooldown. So a big buff for Thresh, and also the AP ratio in your Q and in your Flay is going up, and the base damage in your Flay is also going up from rank 2 onwards. I just think these are big buffs for Thresh. And to be honest, if everyone played Thresh at like, a good level, I would even put him in broken tier. I think these are super good buffs. So look out for Thresh in 13.4. Now, are any other supports getting changed? Well, not really. I mean, Maokai has dropped all the way to B tier, right, because of the nerfs we discussed in the jungle tier list. But I should mention here as well, guys, that Spellthieves Edge, Spectral Sickle are getting nerfed. So for ranged champions, they're going to be worse off because you're not getting as much mana regeneration from these items. And also engaged supports are getting like another buff here because Relic Shield and Steel Shoulder Guards, your starting items, you're getting more health regen from these, both the tier 1 version and the tier 2. And you guys can see on your screens, as far as low-key broken goes, we have Fiddlesticks, Senna, Set, Shaco, and Taric, and again, I will detail these in a future video, so make sure once again you subscribe so you don't miss out. Guys, that was the tier list for 13.4. Let me know down below in the comment section any thoughts you might have, and until our next season 13 upload, this has been Eeks.